When you get hold of the Nintendo Entertainment System. When you master Rob, the video robot, and meet the challenge of Gyromite. When you shoot the light-sensing Zapper. When you play the system with the most arcade hits. You're playing with power. The Nintendo Entertainment System. Now you're playing with power.
I don't know, did you find it difficult to narrow it down to 5 games?
To 5, not so much. For me, narrowing it down to 5 wasn't too difficult. Outside of just being a little too obvious about my choices.
We should probably take a step back and explain what we're doing here. So, I'm Mr. Matthews, and this is Omega Ace Gaming.
Hi.
So we're talking about NES games. I guess the idea was to talk about our favorite games. I think it just so happens that both of our favorite systems just so happen to be NES.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, NES is my favorite game console for sure.
What are your next 2 favorite consoles?
I'd say Super Nintendo, and from there it gets a little tricky. Probably be the Nintendo 64, which is definitely not a typical.
Okay.
That's a game console, all right.
It sure is. It plays some video games. It's got a controller.
Yeah.
You can hook up your TV and everything. It would have been cool if our favorite console was maybe not everyone else's favorite video game console, but again, it's everyone's favorite retro console for a reason. It's just the way it works out sometimes. So we were gonna do like a top 10 each, but I kind of figured we'd probably end up saying a lot about these games. So I think 5 each is pretty good. So that's a top 10 between the 2 of us.
Are we going from number 5 to number 1, or no particular order?
I figured no particular order, but I kind of thought that just go with the obvious ones first, since that's on everyone's list.
Most of mine are pretty obvious, I feel.
If you're paring it down to just 5 NES games, it's kind of hard not to pick games that most people are going to pick.
Right.
I kind of had this theory that there should be just kind of an implied list where everyone likes Mega Man 2, everyone likes Contra, everyone likes Mario 3, and Legend of Zelda. So let's just put these in some kind of ethereal implied list. You don't have to say them in your top 10 videos. Unless you say otherwise, we'll just assume that these are your favorite games. You can focus on the next 10, that it might be more interesting.
Right.
So with that being said, I'm sure we actually do have some really common games on our list. We don't have to go in like order of preference, but
right.
What is your first game?
Big surprise.
Hey, I've heard of that one.
Let's get that one out of the way, right?
It's got to be in there somewhere, I suppose.
新しい冒険が今始まろうとしている。愛よ、勇気を奮い立て。僕らはマリオと強くなる。テクニカルファンタジーゲームスーパーマリオブラザーズ3。
Well, this one here in particular was one of the very first video games I've ever played, so that makes me super biased. And it was also one of the first games that I've ever discovered secrets in for the first time, which made me feel extra special about it. As a child, I always looked up to my older siblings, my cousins, and this was one of their ways that they would impress me, a way that they would elevate themselves, make me idolize them, as adult gamers. And, that was I remember vividly, the very first thing I've ever discovered as a secret in a video game was the hidden flute in World 1 in Super Mario Bros. 3. I guess you could just say that was a big eye-opener for me, that video games had so many layers to them. There was more to them than just getting from point A to point B.
Now, was this the first NES game you played, or was this the first one you really sunk your teeth into?
I'd say this was the first one I've ever sunk my teeth into. It was also the first game I've seen the ending to.
Okay.
So that's a big deal too. Even though it wasn't me who made it to the end of the game, it was an older cousin of mine. But it was just something that I guess you could say it was the first game to help me visualize a goal. So this was the first one that made me say, "Oh, there's an ending. There's something to shoot for. I hope to achieve that one day in a video game."
Now, you're a little bit younger than me, so I guess you didn't see like the Wizard in the theater.
I know.
Have you seen the Wizard at all?
I've never even seen it.
No? Okay. Well, there's this great game that is advertised that the whole movie actually advertises, and that's Mario 3. And for a lot of us, the location of that whistle was revealed in the movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was how my cousin discovered the secret in the first place.
Okay.
We looked at him as, my older sister and I, we looked at him as like a gaming god at the time. Like, oh, wow, look at this guy. You know, he made it to the end of this game. We've maybe only made it to like World 3 at the time when we were younger. You know, World 3 to us was a big deal.
Yeah.
And here he was grabbing these flutes and just skipping everything and just going straight to the end of the game.
Now, you and I have actually played that game together. And I believe we played through every single level, right? So we didn't skip anything.
That's right.
And I think maybe we only died twice, or 3 times. When I say we, I think I've died 3 times. I think you were fine all the way through the end of the game.
Well, for me, one of the big reasons I'm so adamant about not skipping any levels is because I absolutely love the stage design in every level. You know, some of which even have unique goals, like flying. Like I remember the level in World 6 where you're supposed to fly up holding the turtle shell, and just how strange that was, and how you'd end up acquiring the Hammer Brothers suit there, and that was something I didn't get until I was in my early teens.
Well, it's I think it was such a step up from. Because you can't really compare it to Mario 2. Like, Mario 2 is like this black sheep of the series.
Right.
But you can very easily compare it to Mario 1. And after Mario 1, where it's like, all the levels of Mario, all 32 levels, were all unique in their own right, but not really unique. Not in a way like Mario 3. So Mario 3 felt like every level was actually a uniquely crafted level, not just a remixed level that came before it.
The power-ups are a big thing too. The introduction of the Tanuki suit, and
the elusive Hammer Brothers suit.
Yeah, the elusive Hammer Brothers suit. That's something I didn't discover that until I was in my teens. So.
How many of those are out there actually in the game? 2?
2, maybe 3. But not even, probably just 2. I couldn't tell you where the other 2 are off the top of my head. I know there's one in that level in World 6. I'm not too sure what the other ones are.
It's such a cool and useful power-up once you get it that you don't want to use it because you don't want to lose it. It's really good to use like in the fortresses because it kills the ghosts and the swamps and stuff. But it's a kind of a heartbreaker when you lose it because it's like you're probably not going to see another one now. Because I believe I actually had the Hammer Brothers suit and I wasted it when you and I played through the game. So
right,
it is what it is.
You know, I've always seen the P-Wings and the Hammer Brothers suits almost like badges of honor. Like you acquire them in the levels, you go out of your way to get them, and you don't want to use them because they just look so nice on your on your bracket there. You know, that's something I think about pretty often.
Since you went with your obvious one, I'll go with mine. That would be, try to guess the light doesn't actually pick it up. Contra.
Yes.
This is not also my number 1 just because it's the most obvious one, but also because it's probably my favorite NES game. It's, I think outside of the original Super Mario Brothers, that was probably the first game I played was the original Contra. One of my friends had it. Again, it's just like Mario 3. Everyone had this game. If you didn't own it as a kid, one of your friends did, probably more than one. So I always had a friend that was willing to loan me their copy for the weekend, or I would go over to their house. We play co-op because that was mind blowing. Being able to play cooperative 2-player, especially since, and I'm not going to make a habit of doing this. Being a little older, us kids were used to playing Atari games, and Atari games are very simplistic. Obviously, you can play 2-player combat, but 2-player combat on the Atari 2600 is not quite the same as 2-player Contra. Even if we didn't get anywhere, it was just like an amazing experience to be on the same screen, often to the detriment to both players, honestly, is to doing this 2-player mode, since you actually have to be very cooperative especially in the waterfall level.
Oh yeah.
Now, did you play Contra when you were younger?
I had again, I had cousins. I had cousins that were really big on the NES, and they played their fair share of Contra. But the thing I remember the most about those Contra games would be the sound effects. It was something I would constantly hear in the background. Like I'd be in the other room eating dinner because my mom was making me eat because I was so distracted by the game, and I would still be able to hear the bullets just off in the faint distance. I'd still be able to hear the bullets firing in the background. I said, "Oh, they're still playing the game." I mean, for a lot of people, that game is an entry point for like speedrunning, for no death runs.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people pick that one because it's a short but sweet game.
Yeah, in that way, it's a lot like. I don't want to get sidetracked on another game, but I would compare Contra to like Ninja Gaiden. I think Ninja Gaiden probably requires a bit more skill, probably honestly a lot more skill than Contra does. But it's also a very short game, and it's very. I think it's. If you're gonna pick a challenging game to no death run or to speed run, Contra and Ninja Gaiden, they're your low hanging fruit. That's what everyone goes for. So if you go to like speedrun.com, there are pages and pages and pages of entries, and I have a submission on speedrun.com for I think Ninja Gaiden and Contra, but just buried all the way down at the bottom. So I'm there just for the sake of being present. Just to like submit a time, but that just goes to show how accessible they really are. Contra in particular, because we're not talking about Ninja Gaiden right now.
Right. Not yet, anyway. Right.
Now, another thing that needs to be said about Contra is that it has absolutely amazing music. Like the music in Contra is probably one of the most iconic soundtracks on the NES. Because this is actually when this name right here, you can right there started becoming kind of recognizable. When you saw that name, you may not have actually made the connection yet, but that silver box with the black Konami label, those games tended to be a lot better than any other game you could rent. And I think all Konami games have just fantastic soundtracks, regardless of their composer. I think they just have a really good knack for hiring music composers, I guess. Yeah. Because I don't know of many Konami games that don't have great soundtracks, even if the game themselves is garbage.
While we're still naming obvious games, I have this one right here.
Hey.
Yes, sir. Kirbys Adventure. How's the lighting? Pretty good.
Who's Kirby? Behind the flabby facade, a physical powerhouse, a street fighter, a weapons expert. He's whatever the situation demands. In Kirbys Adventure, evil King Dedede's stolen Dreamland's dreams. Now Kirby's fighting to get him back, level by nightmarish level. That's Kirby. He's cute. Till you cross him, then he's one tough cream puff. Kirbys Adventure on NES.
This was the first video game I've ever beaten on my own. And this, you might say, this is the one that gave me the confidence to beat other games. It was almost like an empowering title for me. Not only was I able to beat it, but I was able to 100% it, which was something I never thought I'd be able to do at that age. I remember borrowing it from back in, I believe was it third grade? I think it was third grade. I borrowed it from another student. I lent him Super Mario Bros. 2 and he let me borrow this. And I liked the game so much, I had asked him, I said, hey, what if you just keep Super Mario Bros. 2 and you let me keep this game? And no, he said no. He didn't budge on that. He did not like that deal at all. So I had to bring it back to him. But this was a ton of fun. It's a really chill game, easy to pick up. You don't have to put in that much effort to enjoy it. I know Kirbys Adventure had a second playthrough on like a hard difficulty, where you had to play through the game with half your health instead of the full health bar. And if you managed to complete that, you would unlock a sound test. And the sound test had Kirby in the background with headphones on, kind of just bobbing left and right. I thought that was really cool, and it was a good place to unwind and listen to music. Really get you to appreciate that soundtrack.
the music in Kirby. I love the soundtracks in all the Kirby games, because I think for the most part until recently it's all been one guy, I think, who's done the soundtrack to most of the games. And a lot of those themes that I just love came from Kirbys Adventure, because I originally played Kirby on the Game Boy, which is a nice looking game, but Kirby's Dream Land is not a good indication of the kind of game that Kirby is, because they didn't have any of the power-ups in that game. You played the Game Boy game, right?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I played it after Kirby's Adventure.
Yeah.
So I was expecting a handheld version of Kirby's Adventure, and I was very disappointed when I found out you couldn't get powers in that game.
I liked the music in that game, and I liked the graphics in that game, but I didn't really like the game that much because it was so easy. It's such a short and very toothless game, so I kind of lost all my interest in the Kirby series pretty much from that point on. And it was only after, because everyone loves Kirby's Adventure, that's often referred to as one of the best NES games, hence why it's on your list. So it was only out of curiosity to see what everyone was talking about that I went back and I played Kirby's Adventure, and it is really good.
The thing I really liked about the Kirby's Adventure also was like every time you'd enter a new world, it would show you this like a little cutscene. It was a little cutscene where they just played with Kirby and like maybe one of the enemies from that world, and they tried to be humorous about it. That gave me something to look forward to. Every time I'd beat a boss, I'd be looking forward to the next cutscene from the next world.
Like him fishing, and then he eats the fish, but then he catches himself on the fishing rod.
Yeah.
It's great to see developers actually clearly have that much fun making the game that they put all that stuff in there. There's no reason to have those little cutscenes. It's just fun, and it's nice that they actually did that.
It's oozing with personality, like you said.
I would say probably the most charismatic game on the NES. So what are we at? 2 for me now. So my number 2 would be Rygar. Now, I've told this story a couple times where my dad, who hates video games and thinks they're a waste of time, is a liar, because I inherited my Atari 2600 from him when I was a kid. So clearly he liked video games enough at that time to have an Atari that he could even pass on to me. And then when I got the NES, he played it at first as much as I did, and on his own, he went and he rented this game and he played it while I was at school or whatever. And then when I came home, he said, "Hey, this game is fun, you should try it out." Now, have you played Rygar?
Yeah, the first time I ever played it was in an arcade, actually.
Okay, so obviously it's one of those games where the NES game is nothing like the arcade game. That Tecmo was pretty good about a lot of their games like that, actually, it seems like.
The protagonist's main weapon was so unique at the time. It was like a yo-yo.
Yeah.
You know?
For me, I pictured it. I think they still have them. Those balloons he blew up. There were also rubber bands who went. Those punching balloon things.
I've never thought of that.
So I think this was the second game I actually got. I played it so much when I was a kid, but I never actually beat it because I couldn't figure out how to get to the final castle. The problem for me is that I had all the manuals. I never read them. So there was plenty about this game that I could have saved myself a lot of trouble with if I just read the manual. I never did. So like there's these little tablets you pick up that are basically like currency for one of 3 power-ups. One that like clears the screen of enemies. Another one actually, it doesn't matter what they do. They're power-ups, and I didn't even think to use them. So I just maxed out all my tablets, and they just stayed like that for the rest of the game because I didn't know what to do with them. It was kind of like one more thing to collect that for me was a complete mystery. So I saved I cost myself, I think, a bit of time as a kid by not exploring all the options available to me. But still, I always loved this game. Music is really good. The music is good. It's not like fantastic stuff. I'll correct myself there. It's just got kind of a charming, kind of bombastic, cheesy soundtrack. There's some good tracks, I suppose. when I played God of War for the first time, it kind of dawned on me then that God of War is kind of like a 3D version of Rygar. And it was only after I played, I think, God of War 1 and 2 that I found out there actually was a PS2 version of Rygar, which was basically a rudimentary version of God of War.
This one right here?
Yeah, that's it. I had that game too in my game room. Now, have you played through that game?
No, not yet. Is it any good?
Yeah, it's fine. I really liked it the first time I played it. Though what really stands out in the PS2 game is how just hilariously bad the voice acting is. Like, it has some of the all-time like worst video game dialogue in video gaming, and I wish that I could actually just play through the game really quick off to the sides so I can drop in some of these cutscenes, but they're just choice.
Can you hear me, Caesarion? Can you hear the voice of your foolish mother?
It is your voice. Are you all right?
You must forget about me. Look, I am no longer the one that you can call your mother. My consciousness will soon be gone. I wish to die in your hands before I become what I do not wish to be.
Stop it. That man no longer exists. Not anymore.
Yes, he does. You are still here.
My body has become that of an evil one, and my reason has descended into darkness. What do you think remains? Princess Harmonia, please, wait for me. I swear my victory to this feather!
The only reason I wound up getting it on the PS2 is because while I was working at GameStop, we were literally getting rid of brand new PS2 games. We were just destroying them and getting rid of them. And I had asked my manager at the time. I said, "Hey, can I just grab this and not destroy it?" And the guy had the audacity to charge me, what was it, like $2 for it.
Wow.
I said, "Fine, I guess I'll give you $2, even though you guys were going to destroy it anyway."
Now, when you say destroy, that you don't mean just like put it out in the dumpster. They were actually going to destroy it?
Yeah, they were smashing the boxes and the artwork, the discs, just to make sure that people weren't dumpster diving for these things.
GameStop, what the fuck is the matter with you? Even then.
All right, here's my next one. Da-da-da-da. So once upon a time, I went on a yard sale hunt with my dad, and we found a guy that was selling NES games, and he was selling them at 2 for $5. There I discovered Ninja Gaidens 1 and 2. I picked them up purely off of the cover art.
Mm-hmm.
I was just blown away by this one's cover art. The dragon, the city in the background. It just looks too good. It's an epic cover. It's an iconic cover. I've always wanted to get like a full-size poster and just stick it somewhere. Future man cave maybe.
There you go.
I remember asking him. I said, "Hey, are you willing to do 2 more? $10, 4 games." He's like, "No, you're pushing your luck." I said, "Okay, I'll take these 2 games." But this one here, I guess the reason I liked it more was because of that iconic introduction, the iconic intro, when they introduced the villain, which was Ashtar, I believe was the name of the main antagonist, and just the lightning strikes at the right off the bat. The lightning strikes with the brooding villain on top of the castle, and the flowing cape. I just thought it was so badass back then. I still do. I still think it's badass. For me, I saw this as boy, this is going to sound really stupid. I see this as Ninja Gaiden 2.0. And the reason I say that is because of the fact that you can climb up walls without having to do that weird trick where you're leaping off the wall and then immediately clinging back on. And the addition of the shadows, the shadow ninjas that you can grab as a power-up. I thought those were such a cool upgrade, such a unique upgrade. Being able to attack enemies from a distance with your shadows, but I thought was really neat. The music I thought was more... I feel like the music in the second game gripped me more than the music in the first.
That first stage music, just so driving and just pumping,
Ooh.
just get you going. And you're right,
With the city in the background.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I thought that was so cool in that game, that first level with the city in the background.
And the tiny addition, the logical addition of letting you actually climb up and down walls as opposed to having to do that weird awkward jump that I never even knew it was possible as a kid. Didn't make it easier, but it made you feel a little bit more empowered, I think, because you were no longer just shit out of luck when you when you accidentally fell off and just managed to cling on, because that was pretty much, you might as well just jump. The graphics I thought were much better too, much more striking colors actually. I would say that I can't really complain too much about Ninja Gaiden 1, but I would say that the color scheme is very muted. Probably by design, but they're much more striking, like a lot of greens and reds and purples that really just kind of really pop. Have you beaten all 3 Ninja Gaiden games to kind of compare one to the other?
I've never beaten the third one. The closest I came was the final form. God, I forgot what the name of the main villain. Foster, right? That was Foster in the third
Foster.
game.
I think Foster got killed by the final villain.
Okay.
I think.
I remember fighting that giant mech thing at the very end of the game, the one that replaces the giant shrimp boss.
Yeah.
In the first game, and I was just a few swipes away from beating the game, and then the timer ran out on me, and I was out of lives, and I said, well, there's not much I could do about that,
That last stage in Ninja Gaiden 3 is pretty brutal too.
Yeah, I feel like they give you just enough time to clear that level.
It's been a while since because I only beat it once, and I really lucked out on the final boss. I did that final form just on one little bar of health somehow. So I don't know what kind of video game god was smiling upon me that night, but I managed to actually beat it. That just blind luck, I think. But what I was going to ask you is, what do you think is harder, Ninja Gaiden 1 or Ninja Gaiden 2?
I always felt Ninja Gaiden 2 was the easier one of the two. Mainly because of the obvious reason being that the game, sets you back so many screens, so many levels when you die against the final boss, and that was a big what's the word I'm looking for here?
It was demoralizing.
Yeah, actually, that's a pretty good word. It's better than the one I would have thought of, honestly. It was definitely it was 100% demoralizing. I said, oh wow, this is makes you feel like someone just picked you up and threw you out of a bar, it's like you don't want to go back in there.
So we should do like a sign off.
How are we gonna wrap this up?
I don't know. Do you want to just end it? Fade to black with a gunshot?
Do you typically say anything at the end of your videos?
I usually say goodbye.
I'm curious to see what everybody else's top 10s are, or top 5s rather.
5 is a good number.
Yeah, let's see which titles stand out on their lists that deviate from ours.
I would like to see the variety there, or I'd like to see the similarity there. So I think it's tough to actually have a lot of deviation. There are a lot of really great games on the NES, and they're in everyone's list for a reason. So it's hard to have a truly unique list.